In this video, I'm going to talk about taking classes abroad. Well, as you already know, I took classes abroad in Spain, in Oviedo, while I was studying abroad last semester. First, I'll talk about registering for classes. Registering for classes was a nightmare. Usually the students come 2 or 3 days before classes, and we have a professor who goes with us, and she registers them for classes. She helps them register and get everything that they need to do ahead of time. Well, we decided this year that our group was going to go 2.5 weeks early, so it was too early to register for classes. So our professor who came with us, she didn't tell us how to register for classes or anything. She just left. And so we were emailing her trying to figure out what was going to go on. She's like, oh, we have this lady who's in charge of housing, who finds housing for all the students at my school. So she found us housing, and she said, oh, our professor was, oh, Concha, the lady who's in charge of housing, she's going to help you figure it out. Well, Concha didn't know how to do it either. So all of us are emailing the school back and forth, and no one's responding. If you know anything about Spain, or if you've been to Spain, you know that they're horrible with responding to emails. They don't get things done in a timely manner, as we do here in the United States. So it was very stressful, and maybe like a day or two before classes started, we finally figured out how to register for classes. So we went there and we registered, and we finally figured out where to take our placement test. And so we went to take our placement test since we figured it out. And the placement test was basically they took all of the students who are extranjeros, or the international students, and we were placed in a room. We had this orientation in the auditorium, and then after the orientation, they handed out papers to us, and we had a written test. And then once we finished our written test, we had to wait in line and talk to a teacher in Spanish about random things, about absolutely nothing important. But then they decided what our level was. And I was placed in intermediate 2B. So we had intermediate 1, and then intermediate 2, which was split up into the lower intermediate part, which was A, and the higher intermediate part, which was B. And then after intermediate 2, B is advanced. So once you got placed in your class, your level, which they do was they post, all the students who were international students were placed in La Casa de las Lenguas, which was only American and Asian students basically, and I think we had like one Swedish student. So basically we were segregated from the Spanish kids, so it made it really hard to meet Spaniards. But what they ended up doing was they placed our levels on the door of La Casa de las Lenguas. So later on that day we went and saw our level, and you had to pick your classes, so they give you a sheet and you just put down what classes you wanted. I only took 4 classes because I was finished with everything I needed to graduate except for student teaching, which I wasn't going to do until the spring when I got back, and I went in the fall. So I only needed 4 Spanish classes to graduate, so that's all I took. I took translation, which that was the one class that I absolutely wanted to take because everyone told me it was the greatest class, you had to take it. I hated it. It was the worst class that I took it was the worst class that I took out of all 4 classes, and I didn't want to take the other 3 classes, and that was the only class that I wanted to take. So it ended up being the class that I wanted to take was the class that I hated, and I wish I didn't take. So that was translation. And then the next class that I took was literature, which I did not want to take. I fought to not take that class, and I ended up having to take it, and I absolutely loved it. So it just didn't, choosing my classes just didn't work out for me. But that class was good, I liked it. The third class that I took was, the next 2 classes were the same teacher. It was history and art. I love those classes a lot, and I did really good in those classes, but those were my favorite classes, history and art. It was art history, not like analyzing artwork. And then the other one was the history of Spain. The way that their classes are done in Spain is a 1 through 10 grading scale, which is really different than here in the United States. And the University of Oviedo recommends that a 5 be passing, but since I go to a private school and they want you to do better than everyone else, they made a 7 passing, which makes it harder for you to do a good. So basically at my school it's impossible to get an A while studying abroad. But I don't know. At my GPA was high enough that it didn't really matter. So for my school, we had to have a 7 to pass, which was kind of annoying because translation was hard, and my translation teacher said that nobody should be getting 8, 9s, and 10s in his class, which meant that I was going to fail this class. But I ended up getting a 7.75 in the end, which my school translated to a C+, which was horrible because I don't get bad grades like that. But it was really hard class. The way it worked was we had 3 classes, we had 3 tests, and whatever one you got the highest grade on was your grade. And I had to get one of my Spanish friends to, like, her and her friend tutored me for like a long time so that I could pass the class. We didn't need textbooks in our classes at all. We were given like printed out packets that they made, but apparently starting next semester they're charging people for it, so I got lucky when I went. The system that I would say I like better. I like the US system better. I actually like having more homework because it makes me work harder. When I was in Spain, you have hardly any homework. You're just expected to pass the test. They don't care about homework at all. So I prefer having more homework, and I prefer having more grades. So I have an opportunity to increase my grade if I do bad on one thing, whereas in my classes in Spain, if you do bad on one thing, you're screwed and that's it. You could fail the class for that. So I didn't like that everything's based on 1 or 2 or 3 tests. Well, that's all I'm going to talk about for now, but I'm going to make more videos later talking about Gilman Scholarship and more stuff related to Spain. So check back soon.